this is going to be the most different workshop that you've had since the program began. Because we're not talking about home, we're talking about the world, and the world is our home. And we are not going to stand up at the mic and give 3 short sessions. We're going to do this like a dialogue, and we're going to stop and ask you for your thoughts and considerations as we go on. This panel includes Roland Roberts, who is actually here in person, is from the United States, Deputy Chief Officer for Research Facilities for the National Science Foundation, Strategic Portfolio Planning, and in his past, he's been, but I think his past is still his present because I think it's close to his heart, biological sciences and ecological observation. And then we have Girma Bitswamiak, who is director of the Windy Research Institute, a professor of wind engineering, and he has had international appointments, but I'm going to give you something that you probably wouldn't see in his bio. You know the Freedom Tower in the United States that was built after the World Trade Center, problem? I don't even want to say what it was. And the tower, the Burj Khalifa Tower in Dubai. These are the tallest towers in the world. And they asked him to make sure that they were wind resilient and not going to fall down in the weather. So, this is absolutely really exciting that Canada is actually enabling other people to rise, and we're going to continue rising with them. So we have 3 really highly distinguished leaders in terms of research infrastructure. They have broad backgrounds and experience. We have 3 different countries, Spain, the United States, and Canada. All 3 have a link to biosciences. All 3 have a link to strategy. All 3, if you read their bios, can boast of an alphabet soup of acronyms. And of them all, there's one that stuck in my mind when I was reviewing them. And the acronym was ABDC. And I thought, what a clever acronym, because we all remember ABCD, and the fact that the one was reversed made me remember that acronym above all others, so really well done. So we're going to have a conversation about international collaboration and research infrastructure. And we're going to start off by talking about, is collaboration, international collaboration, a good idea, and why? And then we're going to say why we don't do it more. What are the obstacles and the challenges that we face? Because we do face challenges locally, but also internationally. And then the conversation will end with the positive note about how we can overcome these challenges and what we can do to make more and better international connections. Now, by giving you the 3rd part of the panel, I kind of revealed the first part, which is this panel all agrees that international collaboration is a good idea. And we would like to ask, in the room, does anybody think it's not a good idea? Well, look at there, we've got 100% approval. We can go home now. We're going to discuss this, and I'm going to ask Roland, would you like to talk to us a little bit about the nuts and bolts? Why is it a good idea to collaborate in these times when we have big problems and big research infrastructure?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to join you at this workshop. Over the past day or so, I sat listening to the conversation, and it's like I was back sitting home talking with my boss. It's the same issues we discuss day after day, the same challenges we face. So thank you so much for inviting us to be here. Really appreciative of this. We collaborate because collaboration sort of catalyzes innovation. A lot of the times we think that we have all of the resources, all of the knowledge to do some of these projects. But what some of our collaborative activities have demonstrated to us is that bringing others to the table with different perspectives, you get basically a better product. And I think just for that is a reason to collaborate. But with reference to cost, as I look at the portfolio that we manage at the National Science Foundation, and I'm going to try not to speak in acronyms, because we are known to speak in acronyms. As we look at the portfolio, most of the new things that are in development, or even some of them in design now, are billion-dollar projects. The basic cost, we are not talking about $100 million. We are not talking about $500 million, which typically a lot of our projects cost $500, the large facilities at the National Science Foundation. But we are talking about new projects that are costing a proposed cost $1 billion. In a lot of situations, these new cutting-edge infrastructure that would help us to address global challenges are only possible through global collaborations. And it is, I think, when it comes to managing cost, if there is one reason other than innovation that we need to be talking with each other, is because of what we would be able to accomplish in terms of sharing cost across different nations. And when I think about this, a lot of times we think of collaborating with just, like nations, people who are as rich as we are, that sort of thing. But I think I was born in Grenada, grew up in Grenada, so I know what it is to grow up in a developing country. And I think we need to think of collaboration much more broadly with the global south, with Asia, et cetera, et cetera. So it has to be wider if we are going to accomplish what we intend to accomplish with these investments in research infrastructure.
Thank you so much for that. It's really very impressive. Guillermo, we also talk about internationalization as a way of solving big global problems, but at the same time as understanding other points of view. Karan Singh, in one of the UNESCO reports, said that if we had listened to scientists from all around the world, we would have discovered chaos theory sooner. I don't know, he never visited my desk because I had chaos there right away. Guillermo, can you talk to us about the pros and cons of different points of view and coming together about big problems?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And my answers will be just from a perspective of a professor who's on the ground, I will zoom in into a specific problem. When you look at, I'm from the natural hazard, more specifically, I'm a wind researcher, how to design buildings for tornado, hurricane, and also the climate environment, build environment interaction to make them more energy efficient, From that perspective, if you look at our built environment, it doesn't see only the wind, It sees the earthquake, it sees the tsunami, and it sees everything, But by way of the academic structure, we have compartmentalized it, Like Western, thanks to the giants like Alan Davenport, who started our facility to work on the World Trade Center, in the early 1960s, we never stopped. We built up, and we created a leadership in wind research in Canada. Majority of the tallest building, the longest span bridges, stadiums, and things like that, they are tested in Canada. When you walk around or travel around oh, this is the model in the wind tunnel, you know, that's what we say. We never stop, we build. Now we are the only one who could do tornado, downburst, hurricane type of testing in a controlled environment laboratory. But that's not the whole equation. You know, where the collaboration comes in is just like when you look at the real problems, they are multifaceted, you know. Then we are good on something, then some university in Europe or in America is better in other thing, you know. Then when you put this, you have the benefit to the society. The impact will be almost immediate, you know. You don't have to re-educate yourself, you know. They come to our lab, you know, when I see it through the lens of our students, you know, I can give you examples, you know. There was one student, he started working on tall mass timber structure, very sustainable material, but very flexible from wind perspective, you know. It's really dangerous unless you design it well, you know. Then he came for 1 month's visit. Guess what? He ended up all his 5 PhD research in my lab, you know. Every time on the go, Miriam is sitting here. She used to be our graduate director. We make rules, you know, like to keep him in that lab, you know. Then he's now assistant professor at McGill University, you know. Like you see, you are giving them, you know, the wind at the back, you know. That person has seen this international collaboration. When he embarked his faculty, he has already a network of engineers, you know, whether solving complex problems or training HQP or from sustainable perspective, you know, the wind E facility, for any wind system, we have 106 fans. I crank up 60 fans. It's almost flying 15 jets, you know. The electricity bill, this is not like something easy thanks to MSI. MSI, we are catching up, but as a professor who's responsible for the scientific aspect, and when you add this kind of operational burden on a professor, you will just get diluted. Then that is where the collaboration, you know, recently the European EU Horizon funded our laboratory with 1.1 million just to open our door for European researchers. One, based on the uniqueness of that facility. First, the gentleman who said there, you know, we have to lead, you know, I really like that, you know. In wind, we were leading and they observed it and they asked us to open our laboratory and researchers come and use that facility. For us, it is a win-win, you know. It alleviates, you know, that cost sharing for the benefit of the society. And the benefit it gives for HQP and other things I mentioned is amazing, you know. Yes, there are challenges too, because for example, CFI, the main target is to help Canadian researcher. The National Science Foundation, the main target is, let's face it, it is to help US-based researcher. Then to go across these regulations, it requires a better thinking, you know, like casting it. It is to the benefit of citizens of the world, you know, like, for example, WIND is helping European researchers to do this kind of unique research, you know. If that doesn't work, even at a level of visiting student, you know, like training HQP, that is always open, you know. Actually, it is good for the university and things like that. So these are some of the challenges and the benefit of international collaboration.
Thank you very much for that. When we think about the CFI, we remember that we're located on Algonquin and Anishinaabe land. And that land is where there's a confluence of 2 rivers, the Ottawa River and the Rideau River. And the Indigenous peoples used to come to that place to dialogue, to have a conversation. And so it's really appropriate that we talk about together what we want to do and how we want to collaborate. Open science may open the door to collaboration for our MSIs, and it may provide an obstacle. I note that we talked about collaboration as a way to eliminate the hazard of silos. And I think, Roland, you were the one that had that thought. Would you like to elaborate on it?
Yes, so I like talking about silos because I think I mentioned this to somebody I was speaking to yesterday. We have gone, for years we've been talking about dismantling silos. And in my opinion, and this is my opinion, this is not the NSF's opinion, we've gone from a situation of millions of silos to tens of thousands of silos, but they are still silos. And the point I try to make with this is that this is something we need to continue working at nationally, working at internationally with collaborators across the globe. We will not, or at least we would be impeded in accomplishing what we are trying to accomplish globally if we continue to maintain those silos, no matter how few they are. We need to continue breaking them down. Let's look at what happened during the pandemic and how progress was impeded until some of these challenges were addressed. And one of the things I think we need to remind ourselves, and I know that sometimes we are trapped by recent memory, or actions, that is, are sort of determined by recent memory. We are all talking about, let's get prepared for the next pandemic. The next challenge we face globally may not be a pandemic, and we need to be ready for whatever form that challenge takes, right? It may be a pandemic, it may be something else. We have no clue what it would be. And the only way we'll be able to do that is through meaningful international collaborations that break down silos, not just data silos, but all other silos that we have established around us.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Now, there are reasons that we don't collaborate internationally, maybe if we want to, but it makes it hard to do it. And we talked about the advantage of bringing together people with different training and different mindsets to solve problems, being creative. And when I went to Girma's lab, I saw students from all around the world looking at the question of winds, because we all have winds. And I didn't actually realize that there was, Tornado Alley in places like Italy. So, it is an international problem, and you've brought people together internationally. But one of the reasons that we don't collaborate internationally is sometimes language. And when I say language, it's not just the English or French or Italian, but it's also what data system and what computing system you're using and how they can connect. So how do we make the advantage of different systems and different languages outweigh the disadvantage of, my goodness, it would be really easier if we could speak the same language quickly.
That's true. Actually, the way I look at it is even that difference is our strength, source of strength, Speaking of the example you brought, like Canada, for example, from a natural hazard perspective, in experimental wind engineering, computational wind engineering, we are in the forefront, When I go to places like Italy, their theoretical knowledge, analytical knowledge, is amazing, Different language, different type of approach, but once we generate tons of data from the experiment, we need that kind of skill to consolidate it and make it understandable, useful by building designers and constructors on the ground, Then at the beginning, yes, we were talking different language, but the moment you pass that barrier, like the impact is significant, It goes into multiple stressors, In real world, we are connected in different ways. The pandemic example Ronald brought, I was shaking my head when he mentioned that, It clearly showed us, how interconnected we are, It shows us our vulnerability too, So we have to really understand, if you don't work collaboratively internationally, the problem in one place will not be confined there. It will make its way to other places. The best sustainable way is to collaborate, improvise the world that we live in. We share everything. We are connected by the ocean, we are connected by the water, and we are connected by the technology. And it's a source of prosperity as well. Canada, for example, in many ways, if I again I'm on the ground, to the wind area, when Alan Davenport established the wind tunnel to work on the World Trade Center, we never knew we'll be like the Mecca of wind engineering. Then that led into other 3-4 major wind tunnels. The largest wind testing facilities are around Western. That ecosystem, selling service to the world, is good also for the prosperity of our communities. So I will stop.
On the question of security against open science, it's kind of a bit of a question. It's a delicate question. And I'm going to ask Roland to answer it, but I'm also going to ask him at the same time, if he wants to wiggle out and not talk about security, to talk about what you called the systemativity of infrastructure.
Thank you. I'm not going to wiggle out of this. Yeah, so in my view, we can collaborate, we can do open science and yet be secure, right? Those things are not incompatible with each other. I know sometimes we discuss them as if, oh yeah, challenges and we cannot collaborate because we need to have honest conversations, right? As we think of collaboration, country-country collaboration, funding agency collaboration, and most importantly, funding agencies in enabling individual researchers to collaborate, making sure we include funding that enables that collaboration that we are asking our PIs, principal investigators, to pursue. As we look at all of those levels of collaboration, one of the things we need to do is to also have honest conversations as to what the challenges are. One of the challenges we are currently dealing with is research security, intellectual property. I'm sure it's a big issue discussed in Canada also. So we have been mandated by Congress to take the lead. There is an entire sector of the director's office that's dealing with research security. We collaborate with them a lot because for a lot of the facilities, most of the facilities, we have concerns of security. We had recent cyber attacks in Chile on Alma and other facilities, that sort of thing. So it's something that is of concern to us at the National Science Foundation. We think, like we have started with CFI, is to have honest conversations about our approach. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. There are certain things we have experienced. There are certain lessons we have learned from some bad situations. And I think we need to have honest conversations with our partners about what those challenges are, how we overcame those challenges, so that in the event that you face similar circumstances, you're not starting from point zero, you're starting from an informed position. So I hope I've answered your question. But basically, we are very interested in continuing those conversations we've started on research security and what we have been doing. Somebody mentioned the Chips and Science Act yesterday, and it's that act that basically mandated that we set up a national security organizations to help colleges and universities, because again, here we are asking academicians, we are asking college professors, oh yeah, have all the competencies in project management, right? We are trained as molecular biologists, as engineers, et cetera, we're asking, right, have these competencies in project management. And by the way, now, security, research security. So the whole aim of this is to make sure we provide the resources that are needed, the expertise that are needed to facilitate the conversations across university campuses in the United States. And we'll be very happy to continue those conversations with you and learn from you and what you are doing, basically, as we continue those conversations going forward.
Thank you. That was really a very elegant response to a question you didn't actually need to answer, and we can learn from you. There are two kinds of human behaviors. One is competition. I'm going to win this race. And the other is collaboration. And I remember a few years ago, there was an international sailing competition, and one of the sailboats got disabled and in grave danger. And the winning boat, the boat that was at that time winning, stopped and helped them out. And they didn't win. Somebody else won the competition. And I went to work, and at work, some people were talking about it, and they said, what a foolish thing they did. They could have won the trophy. And the others said, there should be a trophy for those that saved the others. So, Guillermo, you are kind of a model of somebody who does that collaboration. How do we get beyond competition to collaboration? But we can't forget that it really is important to try and excel.
That's true. I think the way I have approached this problem, the world is full of problems that needed to be solved, you know. Then if you zoom in into a particular problem and you only work in that space, then that competition eats you, you know. So to think faster, to think brighter, and to solve the real world of our problem, and that requires actually collaboration, you know. Like in places like Western, for example, there are even many wind engineers in the same group, you know. Do we compete or do we work together, you know? I think if you work together, you know, the boat sails higher, you know, the problem that you solve, the benefit of collaboration outweigh the other, you know? So you can solve big problems, you know? So there are so many research problems. World is full of problems that is waiting to be solved, you know? So that perspective usually wins over the competition. And the outcome of this collaborative research is also immediate, you know, because you are joining forces, experiences, you produce some of the most impactful type of, so in science, I think that approach, especially in natural hazard research, it works well, you know.
So when we talked about how we could actually go beyond the obstacles to doing something positive, we talked about the fact that good communication and knowing each other is really important and obvious, pretty obvious. There's a question also about how do we start? Where do we start? Do we focus on the facilities? Do we focus on the research project, the scientific question? Or do we look at ways to bring the people together? Or do we do everything all at once? And while we're doing that, you know, wouldn't we all said it'd be nice that we had a roadmap, but this roadmap would be international. It wouldn't just be a Canadian roadmap. And we need a portal for the second level of scientists. The ones that are involved will know the roadmap, but those that we're going to communicate with that are going to do the next level of science using the results of one project to fund fund the other, to fuel the other. So how do we start this? And what great ideas could we put on the table to say, here's a good way to start collaboration? And
it's really interesting. Thank you to all the speakers. Really interesting to hear your thoughts. They echo a lot of mine. I think a couple of points that I'd like to make is really the scale of the challenge that we're all facing right now. The global challenges really are global, and that we can't go it alone, none of us. So it is about that collaboration and working together. And in this room there are a lot of brilliant minds, but there's a hell of a lot more across the globe too. So why would we not get us all together, all of those brains together, and come up with a much more coordinated, sensible, perhaps hopefully successful answer to dealing with some of those challenges? And I think kind of just picking up on a lot of the points that have come up in the panel, for me ultimately there's one common denominator, which is people. The best partnerships I've been involved with internationally, be it in bringing lab-to-lab collaborations together, infrastructure, whether it's about particular strategic programs around particular areas of science. The best, most successful ones have been about the room of people that have been involved, not only in designing those opportunities, but also in delivering them. And I think it's about coming to the table and leaving, we all have our priorities, but leave your agendas at the door. Let's find the common space about actually what are we trying to do here, and let's be creative about how we can do that. Let's work around some of those challenges and those problems. I sit in a funder. Money is always a stumbling block, but we can actually find ways around that money, ways to influence, ways to generate more money, ways to think about delivering something more creatively so that less money is needed. So I think it always comes down to that room of people and those that are there trying to deal with that problem, trying to move us forward and address those global challenges. And when it comes to us being in that room as well, I think several members of the panel have said communication, honest communication, and if we have red lines, be clear about them. Because what's the point in trying to gloss over them in working together? That actually, if we're upfront and say, well, we really want to make this work, but for us, for various reasons, we can't go past this point, or we can't do this bit. Everyone is in possession of that information then, and then, you can kind of collectively drive through forward those collaborations in the best way and get, to the end result that you want to get to. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Very nice. And our colleagues from Amundsen, a little Canadian perspective.
Yes, thank you to bring us on the spot again. So for us, it's a bit, we are a bit lucky somehow because Arctic research is a small world. And it's international by nature. For example, it's highly collaborative most of the time, I would say, but it's highly collaborative. Our researchers, they work with people from abroad all the time. They bring collaborators on board, and they go elsewhere. They bring new students and so on. And for example, we can have a call, like this summer, I got a call from someone from University of Washington saying, oh, I cannot recover my mooring. Can you do it for me? I said, yes, but can you bring a technician? So he sent a technician, and then we helped him, and he helped us. And then this is just the start of another collaboration. And this is like that all the time. So it's the nature of the work. For us, it's make it easy to make connections across the globe. And I hope that this could serve as an example, because collaborations in science, it's the key.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but I'm actually glad I did, because your response was so lovely. And I see a hand in the audience. And after that, we're going to let each of the panelists have another word, and then that will be the end. Oh my goodness, you'll have to leave here. But don't leave without the idea of collaborating. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm just getting back to the concept of collaboration, because it's always fun to see how key performance metrics kind of perturb human behavior. I remember once I was an executive of university, And the universities always love the Maclean ratings. And one of the ratings was, how many books do you buy each year? And the library was saying, well, we don't want to buy more books. We want to do other things with the money. But we're forced to buy new books because we can't fall in the ratings. And we have the Western Dean Agreement, so we have interlibrary loans with all the universities. So there's an example where, you know, the KPM is not helpful. You know, I was in a department, or still am actually, but when I was asked for my yearly review, they said, please provide your publications. Oh, and by the way, only provide those that you're first or last author on. So what are they saying there? They're saying we don't value collaboration at all. And I think it's very good, not just CFI, but any organization, it'd be good, when you look at your KPMs, your key performance metrics, just think, does this key performance metric encourage collaboration or discourage collaboration? And likewise, are there key performance metrics that we could have that could actually encourage collaboration as well? So I think that would be a really good way of focusing people to the importance of collaboration.
Excellent point, and we're going to go to Roland and then Girma. And
yes, actually, I want to follow up with this because it hits the core of our system. You know, like for example, you hire an assistant professor, and you discourage them from collaboration. You know, like the tenure track is based on, as you said. You know, then the way I went around that is, I am not bounded by a set of rules that the university puts on me, you know. That is one way to go there, you know. Then I always ask, okay, what do I do to satisfy those regulations, you know? Then I set matrix A, then what is that I believe in? Then I add. Yes, it's a lot of work, a lot of stress, but you are right, the system doesn't encourage collaboration, you know. We have to really work, you know, whether it is in the key performance indicator or research ecosystem is, it has different players, and we have to really resonate by showing the impact of our collaborative research, you know. Otherwise, you are right, it just, the core of academic problem is that individuality, you know. We have to work against it. And we need to have our own goal target, you know. That's how I end up being collaborative, just making sure you cover your back, you know.
thank you. And Roland?
Yes, so I feel your pain. And seriously, I think as funding agencies, we need to think about what those KPIs are. And I hate to be activist here, but I think, you know, one of the conversations I've had with colleagues at the National Science Foundation is that, you know, we complain and complain and complain about things. And I think sometimes we forget that we have some power to initiate changes. The system in the US is just the same. When I was a faculty member, it's publish, 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 or perish kind of thing, and what counts, that sort of thing. And some of us, as we advance through the university administration, we forget what it was like for us as assistant professors. And as administrators, you know, we wrote the tenure system. Why don't we change the tenure system? Right? We set those rules. We can change them. It would not be easy. I am not saying that it would be easy, but the conversation has to be had, especially when it is sort of counterproductive like this in terms of inhibiting collaboration across the board. So again, I hate to be activist, but this is just my opinion. We can change it if we want.
So there is a book about the Blackfoot people who lived on the west coast of Canada, the United States. And in that book, it says that the people weren't as good as they should be. They really disappointed their gods. It sounds like probably could have happened today. But I don't think in this room, because I don't think anybody's disappointed anyone today. But that disappointment had a bad result, because before they disappointed their gods, each person had a roadmap. They didn't call it a roadmap, but a map. And the map was how to get to do what needed to be done on earth. And in anger, the god took the map and tore it up in 1,000 pieces and threw it in the air. But a little piece of that map landed in every person on earth. And I think it's really an interesting story, because I hear today so many pieces of the map, so many people that could come together and really make a difference. And I hope that we do that we don't get on the planes and fly to different destinations, although we would love to come to the Canary Islands, Immaculada. Please invite us. But that we don't go away and forget this, that we remember that we have a little piece of the puzzle that we can put together and make a difference. So I thank you, because I know you can. And I thank the panelists, because you have been absolutely terrific. Thank you very much.